Now, moving on to our main topic of discussion this evening, should voting be made compulsory? Should citizens be penalized for voting? Take a look.
On the debate tonight, Niti Aayog boss Amitabh Kant has sparked off a debate. He says voting should be made compulsory for all Indians. This election, urban India once again had a low voter turnout so far. In Chennai, for the Lok Sabha elections, the voter turnout was 59.7%. Meanwhile, only 54% of voters voted in Bengaluru. In Mumbai, the voter turnout was 54.7%. Similarly, other cities also showed a similar low voter turnout. Many citizens used the election holiday for taking an extended holiday. We ask citizens if making voting compulsory is the solution to ensure India votes as one for a new government.
I guess we should give it a try anyways, because if we don't vote, we don't have the right to question people.
It should be made mandatory, but I don't know about the imposing of fine, because again, it should be something which they can afford.
I think voting should be mandatory, but imposing a fine, it's not necessary.
There should be a fine imposed, but then at the same time, if you don't vote in an election, you don't have the right to complain about what's happening in the country.
As the debate over the low voter turnout brews, Mirnau asks, should voting be made compulsory? And should citizens be penalized for not voting? Let's debate.
Well, our phone lines are open and we're also running a poll on Twitter and on Involve, so you can tell us what you think. On the show with me, Urmilesh is a senior journalist, so is Rajesh Sundaram. We have Triloshan Shastri, who's a professor with the Indian Institute of Management and also the founder of ADR. Mr. Arima Sundaram is a senior advocate, and Anurag Naidu is a political analyst. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the show. Mr. Sundaram, legally, obviously, we have the right to vote, which means nobody can stop us from voting, but nobody can force us to vote either. Do you believe that that should change?
Well, Faye, the fact of the matter is that the right to vote is a statutory right. There is no statutory duty to vote. Now, for example, payment of income tax is an obligation cast on a person by statute. Voting is not an obligation cast, it is a right given. If a person is given a right, they have a right not to exercise that right, and that is very simply the law. The question is, can that law be changed? Can that law be amended? And can it be made mandatory? The point I think you really have to ask yourself is this one question. You now have this column which says, apart from the candidates, you then have the nota, none of the above. Well, according to me, the person who says none of the above is really a person who says, I'm not happy with any of these candidates, and therefore I'm not voting for them. The people who don't go to vote at all are really people who say any of the above. It's really aota, meaning any of the above. Yes. It doesn't matter to me which of the above comes in. It really doesn't matter, because they're all different faces of the same coin. And so it really doesn't matter to me whether Mr. X is there or Mr. Y is there. Why should I waste my time? Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm not bothered about it. But these same people will then go around and say, whoever is there will criticize them. That is part of the game. So part of the game is to say, listen, I don't care whether the BJP comes in or the Congress comes in or the Samajwadi Party comes in or the Aam Aadmi Party comes in. It doesn't matter to me who comes in. They're all one and the same. But then once a government comes into office, these same people will stand up and complain. So the question is, yes, I think the duty to vote is really an exercise of furthering democracy. Duty to vote is really our duty as an Indian citizen. I think we all have that duty. It's a moral duty, it's a pious duty. But as a legal duty, I think it's very difficult to, even if you pass that law, to enforce that law. Just imagine, if you say there are 890 million voters in India, and then you turn around and say 50% don't vote, that's 420. What are you going to do? Fine 420 people? File cases against 420 million people? Fine 420 million people? I mean, you're going to be spending all the time between two elections only filing cases and fining these people. So it's a very impractical thing to do. I think what we should really aim at is in socially improving the social consciousness, the public spiritedness of the people. And the more the people get more public spirited, they will vote. But today, the apathy in voting is, I think, a real sign, and that is the worrying factor, and let's accept it, that many people in India really feel have given up any hope and are really saying whichever party comes in, they are going to do nothing for us, or they're going to be doing the same thing. There's going to be the same corruption, the same this, the same everything else. So why should I waste my time? Let me take a day off. And that is the sad part, because it really reflects how the Indian is feeling. A person like me would delay his going out of town to make sure that I'm in town just to go and vote. That's because for me, it matters, because I do believe that voting for somebody and who's in power and what they're going to do, their policies, is going to make a difference. But unfortunately, it looks like almost half the country feels it really doesn't make a difference which party comes in. And I think that's a very sad reflection, and that is what this reflects.
But I want to ask Professor Shastri this question. Professor Shastri, a lot of people, and quite rightly, Mr. Sundaram said that if you don't vote, you're saying any of the above instead of none of the above. But people complain that the nota actually doesn't amount to anything. So I would go in, I press nota, but nothing happens even if nota gets a certain large number. So is nota a failure in India, and has that added to perhaps the low voter turnout?
Nota is the beginning, first step in some fundamental changes, but that may take a long, long time. I don't think it's a waste. Right now it seems to be a waste because there's no legal backing for what happens if Nota gets the maximum number of votes. That will change if the number of people in Nota increase. And on this fundamental question, we have to ask 3-4 things. One is, there was a campaign that, 100 million voters are not enrolled, the missing voters. So for whatever reason, there are lots of people who are not on the voting list.
True.
Number two, there are people in India who are traveling, 100 million people, 200 million people, labor, students, professionals are traveling from one part of the country to the other. And, I'm not saying anything for or against these people, but they are not registered in the place of their work. They are registered in some other place. That is another reason. The third reason is that the political parties, I think Mr. Sundar kind of hinted at it, we have no control on which candidates are put up. We are given a menu and then we have to choose between some candidates.
Yes.
In the US and in other countries, the candidates are chosen by the people, not by the political parties. That's a democratic process of selecting the candidates. When we move to that, you will see many more people voting. And finally, we see that the issues of the people, the issues of the people, ADR survey shows are very clearly employment, healthcare, and water. Peene ka pani and sinchai ka pani, irrigation water. These issues are not addressed. Except for abusing each other, the political parties are showing no interest in the issues of the people. So people are getting put off कि ये क्या हो रहा है, कुछ भी बोल रहे हैं. It has nothing to do with my life or my public sort of position on issues. That's not being discussed. So why should I vote? That is the main problem. The political parties have become completely disengaged from the people, except for dividing them either communally or by caste, and sensational items, and abusing each other, and raising all kinds of bogies to provoke people. There is no substantial issue or discussion on what I am going to do once I am in power for the benefet of the public.
Let me take that question. Let me take that point to Rajesh Sundaram, if I may. Yes, Rajesh, do you also believe perhaps that politicians are just not connected anymore? People don't feel like it will make a difference. So, for example, in Mumbai, when Mumbai voted, there was only one new politician or one new face who was introduced by any political party, and that was Urmila Matondkar, who was introduced by the Congress. Everybody else had been a representative of the people at one point or the other. So people felt like there were no new choices. It was the same thing again and again, and a lot of people didn't go out to vote. Would you agree with Professor Shastri that maybe politicians are disconnected and that's why people don't feel the need?
Well, I absolutely agree with him. But of course, I do believe that, voting should be made compulsory because, this is the fundamental thing to do in a democracy. And if there's any reason why people are not voting, all of those should be addressed, whether it's the election commission should ensure that whoever is eligible to vote is enrolled, whether it is to ensure that people's names are there on the electoral roll, and it should not be the case that their names are deleted arbitrarily, or that the EVM machines work, or that the migrant voters somehow have a system which is foolproof, where they can be part of the electoral process. All these things should be corrected, should be rectified, and then, of course, it should be made mandatory for people to vote. The Election Commission this time around has spent something like 50,000 crore rupees in conducting these elections. That's a huge investment in the democratic process. And for a country like ours, to give you a comparison, the United States spent 6.5 billion US dollars. We spent 7 billion US dollars. So with that kind of a cost to this democratic process, it is really unfair for people not to come out and vote. Also, if there is a provision for a fine like it is in Australia, we would see a higher number of people coming out and voting. Right now, there is no compulsion for them to come out and vote. They just say that, if it's an extended holiday, they'd rather go to their hometowns than stay where they are and vote. All of that would change. Like if you look at countries which have gone from voluntary voting to compulsory voting, there has been a substantial jump in the voter turnout. It's well into the 90s. Also, this penal provision is not something that is very harsh in these countries, For instance, in Australia, it's about a few dollars. And most people, would pay that instead of getting into court cases. Also, I believe there should be exemption given to people who are unwell, exemption given to people if they cannot come out and vote in harsh territory. And that should be a lenient amount of leniency in it. But having said all of that, I do firmly believe that voting should be made compulsory because that's really the soul of democracy.
Well, I can see Anurag Naidu shaking his head. You don't, Anurag, do you agree that voting should be made compulsory? Is that the only solution? Is there no other way to enthuse people into coming out and doing their duty to their country?
So yeah, I do not think voting should be made compulsory, or there are two aspects. One, we're talking about making voting compulsory, and the other one is we're talking about fining people who are not going out to vote. That's what Amitabh Kant is precisely saying. So I don't come from a school of thoughts where I believe that punishment should be the last resort. And if we are really missing the gun, we have to understand that if we are finding someone, that's not a rocket science. But if we are trying to organically find ways, how do we make people interested in the system? I think that can be a rocket science thought. And for me, something that is working in some other country or elsewhere in the world does not necessarily to be right in India. We have our own complex problems. But being an urban voter, what I believe strongly is I've seen a sharp decline in people being interested in politics or people having interest in discussing issues. They're drifting away from discussing issues. There are a lot of issues that we or the politicians or our netas are making or discussing or making a lot of drama in Delhi, which the people of urban voters particularly are disinterested. They feel detached from the mainstream system. And that's exactly why. I know there is an interesting point what Amitabh Kant also mentioned in his tweet. He was talking about poor, rich and middle class. But if we talk about poor, are we really satisfied with the quality of voters that we have? For me, if it has to be weighing between quality and quantity, right now, we should be more concerned about the quality of our voters and not the quantity of our voters. If we are fair, if even 52% of the voters in Mumbai or elsewhere in the country are voting, without taking bribe, without taking money, without taking alcohol or any other offerings that the netas are putting, I think we are still on a very fair path democratically. But, there's interesting thing also coming up within these recent elections. People have faced that the election commission has been so inefficient. You see people standing in lines in Andhra. I mean, I've personally witnessed in scorching summer heat, and the EVMs are malfunctioning. People have traveled all the way from Bangalore, Delhi to cast their vote, and what they see is such an inefficiency. They feel detached from the system. Second,
yes. So Anurag, I will disagree with you there because I don't believe I don't believe, and if you're having a conversation about how prompt the Election Commission has been on the Model Code of Conduct, I'll agree with you that it has been extremely inefficient. But if we're talking about actually conducting the election, given the size, the mammoth size of what needs to be done in this country, and in the weather that we're doing it, in the terrain that we have to do it in most parts of the country, I believe the Election Commission has done a fairly good job. It is a huge, huge task. But we'll come back to that point. We have several people on the phone line. With Urmilesh's permission, I'd like to take a few calls. One second. I'll come back to you. Shyam Sundar on the phone line from Vijayawada. First of all, Shyam, I hope that you are safe in Vijayawada and none of your family members are at the coast where the cyclone is likely to hit. But tell me, what is your point of view when it comes to making voting compulsory?
Yes, I've been going through your program, and voting should be made compulsory, but with the conditions.
Okay.
First of all, we must make the politicians or MLAs, MPs to be answerable to the people or to their constituencies. Once that is not done, it carries no meaning for putting the compulsory voting. Number one. Number two, after getting elected, if the politicians are crossing the lines is if they're jumping from one party to other party, automatically the membership must be cancelled. That should go off.
Yes.
And number third is that the right to recall should be given to the people. Right to recall their members, either MLA or MP. That should be given to the people. Then only one should make it compulsory.
Absolutely. In fact, that's a great question. I'll go back to Mr. Sundaram with that question. But Chandra Srinivasan on the phone line from Mumbai. Chandra, go ahead.
Madam, the compulsory voting should be there in all over India, especially in urban in Bombay. People have only voted 51 to 53%.
53%.
Where
yes.
we have been the maximum revenue to the government of India.
Yes.
And people should realize why we are voting, what for we are voting, and how can we vote. This
yes.
is a very important factor every voter has to know.
Keep in mind. Yes, Ms. Chandra. Balaji from Chennai. Balaji, go ahead.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Balaji, madam.
Yes.
From Chennai.
Yes,
Hello.
Yes. Balaji, go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. Actually, instead of asking for this, voters should be made compulsory. I think the Election Commission should make it very easy for the voters to vote. If they should actually link the Aadhaar card with the voter ID card so that it can be easy for the voters to vote. For example, for me, actually I tried to change my Aadhaar card address, voter ID card address, but instead of changing the address, they have deleted my voter ID.
Yes.
Not only for me.
Yes. So that's a very fair question. Urmileshji, I want to come to you with this question, and that is people changing sides, because one of our viewers has also written to us saying, I voted for for the candidate of one party, but after he won the election, he switched over to the other side, and I feel cheated. So if we are going to make voting compulsory for citizens, and where there's going to be a fine or some sort of penal effect for not voting, then we should also not allow candidates to switch parties and switch sides after they have won an election. Urmilesh.
See, first let me speak on the your main issue.
Yes.
Personally, I don't agree with the proposition of mandatory voting pattern.
Yes.
I mean, in Australia, if it is there, or in Belgium, if it is there, it is not applicable to India. How can you say that is also applicable to India? पहली बात तो ये है कि ये जो पूरा का पूरा डिबेट है जो अमिताभ कांत ने शुरू किया है वो इल एडवाइज्ड है. लॉजिक इसके पीछे नहीं है. इसके पास कोई इसके पीछे कोई बेसिक आइडिया नहीं है कि अपने देश में डेमोक्रेसी की क्या स्थिति है. हम दुनिया की जो यूरोपियन जो बहुत सारे मुल्क हैं या दुनिया के और जो मुल्क हैं जहां डेमोक्रेसी है जो काफ़ी मैच्योर हुई है लंबे समय से, उसके और हमारे बीच में एक ह्यूज बहुत बड़ा गैप है. हमारे यहाँ तो जो इलेक्टेड पार्लियामेंट है उसका भी यहाँ की जनता से डिस्कनेक्ट बढ़ता गया है लगातार. अगर आप देखिए आज हमारी पार्लियामेंट को और जनता को देखिए, पीपल्स जो इश्यूज हैं उनको देखिए, तो एक ह्यूज डिसकंटेंट है. वहाँ पे SEZ पर जो डिस्कशन होता है, मोस्ट ऑफ द मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट व्हेन SEZ वाज बीइंग डिस्कस्ड इन द पार्लियामेंट, आई सा माय विद माय ओन आईज, दे वर नॉट देयर, दे वर एब्सेंट. number one. Number two, even those political parties which declares their commitment to the peasantry and the farmers and all, they voted in favor of SEZ. How can you say कि they are the people's representative if they are voting against the very interest of their people? तो मेरा ये कहना है कि आज हमारे देश में जो डेमोक्रेसी की स्थिति है उसके बारे में गलत व्याख्या अमिताभ कांत जैसे लोग करते हैं। ये लोग ये उसी तरह की है, कोई बहुत बीमार आदमी है, गंभीर रूप से बीमार है, उसको आप कहिए कि भाई तुम मेकअप कर लो ठीक लगोगे। अरे भाई मेकअप से कोई आदमी हेल्दी नहीं हो जाएगा। आपकी डेमोक्रेसी की प्रॉब्लम ये नहीं है कि लोग ज्यादा वोट नहीं कर रहे हैं, आपकी डेमोक्रेसी की प्रॉब्लम यह है कि आपकी डेमोक्रेसी कागज पर ज्यादा है। आपके पास एक खूबसूरत कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है लेकिन उसका खूबसूरत एग्जीक्यूशन नहीं है। आप कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन और एग्जीक्यूशन दोनों में इतना फर्क है। सी, आई विल जस्ट कोट डॉक्टर भीमराव अंबेडकर, what he spoke on 25th November 1949, just one day before the adoption of Constitution. He said कि अपने देश में आज के बारे जब भी ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन अडॉप्ट होगा यानी एक दिन बाद, हमारे देश में एक आदमी और एक वोट का सिद्धांत लागू होगा, लेकिन हमारे यहाँ असमानता इतनी ज्यादा होगी, हमारे यहाँ आर्थिक रूप से और सामाजिक रूप से असमानता होगी। अगर इस इनइक्वालिटी को हम नहीं खत्म करते, रिमूव नहीं करते, तो डेमोक्रेसी सर्वाइव नहीं करेगी इंडिया में। दिस वाज told by Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar on 25th November. One second.
Yes.
तो आज की तारीख में आप ऑस्ट्रेलिया से कंपेयर कर रहे हैं। ऑस्ट्रेलिया में अभी जो आप ग्लोबल इंडेक्स जो अभी हाल में आया है इनइक्वालिटी का, उसमें इंडिया 157 कंट्रीज में 147 पे है, 147 पर है आउट ऑफ 157 कंट्रीज। और ऑस्ट्रेलिया की आप बात कर रहे हैं वो टॉप 10 में है, सबसे नीचे 10 लोगों में है। तो आप किस तरह की बात कर रहे हैं? आप कंपेयर कर रहे हैं ऑस्ट्रेलिया जहां इतने सारे लोग अगर वोट नहीं डालते हैं उन पर मुकदमे की कार्रवाई होती है। मिस्टर सुंदरम ने बिल्कुल सही कहा, आप जितने लोग वोट नहीं करेंगे उन पर मुकदमा करेंगे तो इस देश की कोर्ट्स में ऑलरेडी इतनी केसेस भरी पड़ी हैं कि सुनवाई नहीं हो रही है। आप कितनी केसेस से इस पूरे देश की कोर्ट्स को खत्म कर डालेंगे, पूरा डिस्ट्रॉय कर देंगे पूरी जुडिशियल सिस्टम को। यह एक मूर्खतापूर्ण प्रस्ताव है जिसे कुछ लोग देश के बड़े टॉप ब्यूरोक्रेट पेश कर रहे हैं।
Well, Mr. Sundaram, there's another point I want you to respond to. Dr. Mohan on Inbal has written to us saying thugs, liars, murderers, anti-social people, dirty money, corruption, greed, all of this is already in our political system. Shouldn't that be cleaned out first before we begin to penalize voters for not showing up in the booth?
Look, Faye, let's understand one thing. Let's not get away from it.
Yes.
We may, as much as we want, cry from the rooftops and say people with dubious backgrounds ought not to be candidates. It reflects on us as people that the parties really believe that these people, why are the parties putting them up as candidates? The parties are not putting them up as candidates because they have dubious records. The party is putting them up as a candidate because the party feels they have the best chance to win. Now, if they have the best chance to win, that's because the party believes the people are going to vote for them. And if that is the belief, it finally reflects on us as people. While there might be a few of us who do turn around and say, look, this man with a dubious character ought not to be there, there are others who are voting in that area who look at him as a Robin Hood and say, yes, so what if he has a dubious past, but we feel he's a good man. So these are very difficult things to say, that unless a person is barred from standing by law, by statute, well, he has a right to stand, and it reflects on us as people, the kind of people we vote. But what I want to point out is something far more important, Faye. You know, the anomaly in this whole thing is here. Yes. I heard somebody talk about political disconnect, and therefore people are not going to the polls. But just think for a moment. Where do you find the lowest voter turnout? The lowest voter turnout is in the urban areas. Now, the urban areas are the ones who, because of the, the social network, because of all the, are perpetually aware of what's happening, commenting on what's happening. All of them are, sending out messages, sending out tweets on what is happening. Now, the very people who are commenting all the time on what is happening, which is the urbanized person, it is the urbanized person who shows the least turnout. So what does that show? It's not a question of political disconnect. It's really a question of I don't care less because one is as bad as the other. Whereas the urban voter, for the urban voter, it matters far more because it's a question of his food, his clothing, his shelter. It's a question of things which affect him on a day-to-day life. That is why you find your rural turnout far more than your urban turnout. Because that rural voter is really concerned as to where his food is going to come from, where his, all his subsidies are going to come from, where his water is going to come from, and therefore he goes out and votes. Unfortunately for the urban voter, they feel that so far as the so-called upper and middle economic classes are concerned, seem to feel that look, whether it's one party or the other, there's going to be this tax or that tax, we are going to be paying the tax, so much of the money is going to the people, so much of the money is not. In any event, we don't get back what we are taxed for, we get nothing anyway, so what does it matter to us? Who's there? So I think what it reflects on is that unless there is somebody who is so big and so strong as commanding the people to come there, attract them, magnetically attract them to come and say, I want to vote for you. Or somebody who gets so much hatred in the people that they go there and say, I want to vote to ensure they're not there. In one of these two extremes are only where you'll find a greater urban voter turnout. Otherwise, it's only the people who believe that it is your duty as an Indian citizen who needs to vote, and as my duty as a citizen, I should go and vote, I go and vote. But that's a pure personal thing. You can't impose it by statute or by law.
Well, a very quick question to Professor Shastri here. We, on the last census, with 2011 census, it showed that there were 400 million people who were living in cities other than the place of their birth. So these are migrant people who move across the country to work and to live. They a lot of times aren't able to vote because they're in the wrong city at the time. Has there been no solution for this at all? Because the Election Commission has not explored the idea of online voting. Are all of these votes simply to be lost, Professor Shastri?
We have to find a solution, and I think we pride ourselves in the best technology that we have among all the nations of the world, from Aadhaar to KYC to all sorts of online and digital payments. So I think we have the technology to make this happen. And I seriously feel that we should find whatever solutions we can to enable everybody to vote. And I just want to make a couple of clarifications. You put the word political disconnect. The politicians know exactly what is going on. They know it much better than all of us who are sitting here as commentators. They know very well. It's just that their main purpose is to win elections, and to win elections they have to defeat the other guy. That's all. They don't have to do all kinds of incredibly hard work to lay roads and make the schools work and healthcare. So they have to just defeat the other guy. So if there is no political disconnect, they are taking the easy way out, and that is a fault. And I don't entirely agree with the notion that ultimately all fault is with the people. The power and the money is with the politicians. They are misusing power and money, and they have to be blamed for it. They are putting up people with criminal records. They are spending black money like water, and then we say that, well, the voters are voting for them. Well, what can we do? We have to choose between the devil and the deep sea. So that is the main problem. Unless the political parties and the political system is reformed, we are going to continue to see this. We are going to go on debating, and one group blaming the politicians, another group blaming the people. But in any situation where there's a problem,
let me quickly take one question. Forgive me. One question to Mr. Sundaram very quickly before I wrap up, Mr. Sundaram. I have already run out of time, though. See, politicians are never going to change the law that actually hurts them. So we've actually seen it not happen in Parliament. Nobody wants to strengthen the laws to clean up that system. We will wind up with bad choices. People will continue to choose bad choices. Does it make sense to go to the courts? Because the Supreme Court instructed the Government of India to change the law. The Government of India did not change the law. Is there a better legal route to this?
Well, the fact of the matter is the Act is very clear, the Representation of People's Act. It has come up before the court. The court has held that the bar will apply to people who have been convicted. The court has also said there will not be a bar until the person is convicted. The fact of the matter is, many of us have been debating this time and again. Can we not bring it in that if there are heinous crimes, I'm talking about heinous crimes, which can be detailed, on which charges have been framed, now in such cases, can they not be barred? This is something the statute can look at. Secondly, can the statute not bring in that in the case of politicians, people who have been voted, or when there's an election due, politicians who want to stand, their cases have to be put on a fast track. Don't forget that on fast track, we've had cases, the heinous crimes like rape, decided within months when they've been put on fast track. Can we not create fast track courts just to deal with these kind of corruption cases, these kind of cases of crimes against politicians, to ensure that their trials are over quickly and they can be disqualified if so required? Now, these are the two ways it can be done, but one the government can say, the legislature can certainly look at is, if charges have been framed in heinous crimes, which carry serious sentences like life imprisonment or death or 10 years imprisonment, in that case, once charges are framed, not filing of a charge sheet, that's not enough. Charges should have been framed, the court should have applied its mind, framed charges in such a case, but for that you need an amendment of the Constitution, amendment of the Act and the Constitution, and the court cannot direct an amendment of the Constitution. It can only interpret the Constitution. So it's back in the lap of the legislature, and like you pointed out, it's in the lap of the people who want to do nothing about it.
Yes, we have run out of time, and I want to thank my panelists for spending time with us, but it simply boils down to this: as citizens, we must insist on better, and we must insist that our politicians be better. Do not vote for anyone who has serious criminal charges framed against them. Do not vote for anyone who's known for corruption. That's the only way to do it, really. We have to, at some point, put our foot down. Thanks for watching.